Good morning, and you are welcome to your flagship program this morning on ITV. And you know, ITV is certainly the best. And this is the day, that Thursday, that's your program, my program, our program, where the mother spirit of Nigeria, the spirit of mother Nigeria, is beckoning on all the system, the children of the system, Nigerian system, to be a participant in the process of nation building. And that is nationalism and you. I am Ebenezer Oyetakin, your host. This morning we will be taking a look at a very crucial issue of concern to all the fabrics of Nigeria nation, the issue that has to do with illicit trafficking in drugs and abuses. Concerns over illicit drugs trafficking and abuses. And with me to take a look at this morning is a gentleman, Mr. or pharmacist Ali Zakari Jia. He's also a doctor of philosophy in the making. I return to you in the spirit of this program, nationalism and you.
It is our responsibility to protect our youth from drug abuse and substance misuse. By so doing, we'll be assisting this nation. Thank you.
Good to have you in our studio this morning.
Thank you.
Since the advent of the new chairman of NDLEA, General Buba Marwa, whom we always know as an action man, there seems to be that despite all the efforts, the arrests, and all of that, the concerns or aggravated nature of trafficking continue to be an issue of great concerns. Why so?
Yeah, thank you. This particular issue has been there before his appointment. The issue of drug abuse and substance misuse, as well as illicit trafficking of drugs, has eaten deep into the fabric of the society before he was appointed the chairman. I'm sure it's because of his action now and the steps that NDLEA has taken now that is now exposing the level to which this particular issue has gone to. So this is what we're seeing. But more needs to be done because it has eaten deeply into the fabric of the Nigerian society. It's a huge problem.
What do you think is the causation that allow it to permeate to this degenerate level, knowing that NDLEA has always been there? Why?
Now, one of the reasons is that the pharmaceutical sector all over the world is one of the most regulated industry all over the world. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, there are some laws that have not been repealed. So because of that, people have easy access to drugs, and the government also has not been able to control the distribution of drugs from the manufacturers to the end users, because people easily have access to it, and they have access to drugs, and that has actually contributed to the issue of illicit trafficking of drugs. Now, the other issue has to do with the social aspects, which has to do from the demand aspect, especially with the youths and adolescents. And also you look at the family level, because children actually follow what you do. They see what you do, and they follow what you do, not what you tell them. So this issue has been there. The government needs to do more. They need to repeal certain laws that controls distribution of drugs, and the society also need to do more.
Well, now, why do you think that the traffickers get so attracted, irrespective of the consequences? Why do you think that there is so much drive for trafficking first? Let's go that direction.
Number one, there's demand, huge demand for these drugs. There's huge demand. Number two, there's so much money involved. So these are the motivators. So much money is involved in illicit drug trafficking. I'll give you an example. Look at Mexico. You have drug cartels. They are some of the richest people in the world. Look at Afghanistan, opium trade. It's all over the world. And if you come back to Nigeria, I talk about cannabis sativa, which we call hemp. So demand, once there's demand for a particular product, people tend to try to meet up that demand. So they create supply chain. But it must be regulated. If it's not regulated, we can't fight this war.
Our youth, the report even said our women.
Yes.
Our women, preponderantly not only in the south, but even in the north, where we think that it should not be, are preponderantly consumers of these drugs. They are involved in the abuses of different kind of drugs and things of that nature. Why do you think so?
You'll be surprised at the caliber of people, the group of people that use illicit drugs, what we call psychoactive drugs, drugs that have effects on the nervous system. There's a group called socialites. They abuse these drugs, psychedelics. Then the youth also, thugs, because it emboldens them. Now you come to the adolescents. They also abuse it. And they're in different classes. There are prescription drug abusers, people that abuse prescription drugs. There are those that abuse non-prescription drugs. And there are those that abuse substances. They're in different classes. So there are a lot of factors that is responsible for this. Like you said, it has crept into the fabric of the society, even in the domestic homes. And that is why I see a lot of fights. Simple argument leads to fights, spouses killing themselves. Spouses killing themselves. There's a case that happened last week. Was it last week or so, this week? I can't remember. A pharmacist, the son on drugs, stabbed her multiple times. On drugs, stabbed the mother. So that is what drug can do. And you cannot divorce drugs from crime and criminality. Because when our youth take it, that's where you find hooliganism, you find thuggery, you find kidnapping, terrorism, banditry, insurgency, So there's a demand for it because what the psychoactive drugs do is that some use it as escape from a particular problem. Some also use these drugs because of peer group influence. They'll tell you if you don't take it, you are not man enough. You understand? Now, some use it to embolden them because once they take it, that emotional part of their brain gets completely blotted out. They no longer reason emotionally, logically, again. They take actions that ordinarily they're not supposed to take. They don't rationalize. And that's why I see oftentimes when criminals are caught, those who take drugs, and after the effect of the drugs has worn out, they now start crying and start asking for forgiveness. But while on drug, these psychoactive drugs, there's nothing they can do. They don't even think twice. Killing somebody is like killing a fly.
Taking this because we must look at it multifacetedly. We are having a very drastic security challenge just in the country that bordered on banditry and all manner of criminalities. And when you see the kind of act they put up, the act of inhumanity to man that are being put up, what is the correlations between this? How do we draw the correlations between this and the influences of drugs?
Now, there's no direct correlation between drug and crime and criminality. But what drugs do is as a catalyst. Because a criminal will sit down, try to perpetrate crime. But what he needs to be able to give him that courage to embolden him is drugs. He won't be able to do it without drugs. And if you look at the history of crime and criminality all over the world, drug is always a catalyst. And that's why even United Nations created the Office of United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. They are linked. So if you go into the den of the bandits, police raids, even people fighting insurgency. Each time they raid the Boko Haram enclaves, you see different type of psychoactive drugs there. Because that's what gives them that courage. It emboldens them to face somebody carrying gun. Ordinarily, they can't do it. So that is where the effect of drug is. That's the relationship of drugs with crime and criminality, especially these bandits and terrorists.
What are the likely negative impacts of this on a society, on a country, and a nation building?
There are several impacts. Number one, it has political impacts. We are going to the 2023 election now. You see thugs. You see people fighting and things like that. Oftentimes, they're on drugs. It has economic impacts. Because at the end of the day, nobody employs a drug addict. No one will employ a drug addict. So there's loss of productivity. It has social impacts. Because a lot of homes now, some of them have drug addicts. Some of the children, youths in a lot of homes are drug addicts. Then it has a security impacts, like I just explained now. So the impacts are several impacts on a nation. Because at the end of the day, the economic impact is that a lot of revenue is lost in productivity. Apart from that, is it trying to take care of rehabilitation homes? The government must create a rehabilitation home to ensure that those who are already addicted are pulled out of that particular circle. And government spends money there, social welfare. So a lot of issues are there, but the critical thing is that the government must really sit up and fight it frontally and headlong. Otherwise, it's really destroying the future of our youths.
The institution created to fight this monster, that is NDLEA, under the present administration and chairmanship, Buba Marwa and the rest of it, apart, what role does society have in ensuring that we tame this monster?
Number one, it starts at the family level. Every family must understand the menace of drugs abuse and substance misuse. They must ensure that their wards, their children, are properly educated. And they must be free with their children. Secondly, do not expose your children to drugs. Because you don't sit in a home and you send children to go and buy cigarettes. You send them to go and buy alcohol. And you think they are not following. They are copying you. They're going to copy you because they feel what you're doing is right. So when they get into the society, they keep replicating the same thing. Parents must watch the kind of friends, peers that their children keep, and they must monitor that to the last. And there are certain red flags that parents must note. I'll give you an example. For instance, if you have a child who suddenly starts withdrawing in isolation, it's a red flag. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He likes to keep his company alone. It's a red flag. If you see new friends around your children or your son, daughter, and they try to talk secretly, it's another red flag. If he comes home and always chewing gum or sweets, something menthol to mask the smell of whatever he's taking, it's another red flag. If they use very heavy perfume, it's another red flag. So we must start at the family level. It's very important because that's where we start. At the national level, like I said, the drug distribution system must be streamlined because you don't allow drugs to enter the hands of people who are not trained to handle it. They don't know the implication. A lot of painkillers are laced with psychoactive compounds, and they're supposed to be given out through prescription only. But our drug distribution system is so open that people sell drugs in the marketplace. You see people hawking drugs on the streets, and that's where it starts from. Then at the level of the NDLEA, they still need to do more because the problem is huge, it's humongous.
Now, from the way you have talked, apart from the family monitoring system should be in place, Now, taking it to society level again, do you think that the government is doing enough in terms of sensitization that can carry the civil society along in order to accurately paint the destructive, paint the picture of the destructive impact of these illicit drugs, abuses, and things of that nature on the society? Is the government doing enough? Now, which of the institutions between these two ought to take this up as a project? The National Orientation Agency or the NDLEA? There is a project of sensitization.
Thank you. The government is not doing enough to sensitize and mobilize people on the effects, negative effects of drug abuse and substance misuse. Because I would have expected this campaign to be taken to tertiary institutions, secondary school, probably put into our curriculum to educate our young children on the effects, negative effects of drug abuse and substance misuse. I expected that in the motor parks, there should be a kind of little committee, either National Union of Road Transport Workers or National Union of Road Transport Owners or whatever. There should be a committee to sensitize people, because you go to motor parks, drugs are freely being sold by people who are not supposed to be licensed to sell them. So a lot needs to be done. Back to the next question. All of them, all hands must be on deck. The National Orientation Agency, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, NGOs, women organizations, CBOs, that's community-based organizations, international partners. It's a joint effort. Everybody must come together to fight this menace. It's not one person that will take it, including Ministry of Information.
Many people have said that particularly the way and manner the Buba Marwa administration is racing against this illicit drug trafficking, and the arrests are being made preponderantly almost on daily basis and weekly basis and things of that nature. Many people have opined that there could be a sabotage even within the institutions that ought to be fighting this, and that is why the permeating nature it has taken over time and the rest of it. Do you share this view?
I do not share this view. Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, has come with a lot of zeal, because in the few months after he's been appointed, he's been able to bring to the fore the effects and what needs to be done. He's done well within this short period, because a lot of arrests was made, and it's equally been able to sensitize the nation about what is happening. We've seen a couple of times on the television, in the media, where you even see personnel, security personnel involved in trafficking of these drugs, using official vehicles. So before now, it's been hitherto been quiet. It's doing much. But like I said, more needs to be done.
Let me vary the question this way. It happens even in police. Yeah. Even in the military, it happens. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, the military is one of the institutions we respect most because of their disciplined nature. But even among their cycle, we see people who connived with criminals and sabotage military operations and things like that, as it does happen in police and things of that nature. What we are saying is that even in EFCC, you have some team in EFCC that will help to water down cases in such a way that you can either hold anybody to task over those cases and the rest of it. We are saying that we are not particular about Buba Marwa now. We know he's an action person. He has been working. There have been so much expositions under him since he took over. But we are saying the institutions itself, NDLEA, people are saying that the reason why over time, the issue of drug trafficking and abuses appear to have been growing is because there are compromises within the institutions. Do you share that view?
I wouldn't want to share the view because I am a scientist and I work based on evidence.
Okay.
At this point, I think that would be a speculation. But I will tell you something. The institution should have a mechanism of checks and balances. Such mechanisms should be able to identify people who want to ensure that they don't get this, want to actually ensure that things are not done properly. I want to believe, because every system has a system of check and balances, every organization. It's now left to him to actually activate that now. Because if you say it's because of sabotage, it may equally be because of incompetence. It may be because of incompetence. Those who were there before probably may not know what to do. So it's neither here nor there. So for now, I think you've raised a very salient point. It's now left for the institution now to put up, if they don't have a check and balance kind of mechanism where they can weed out saboteurs or people that corroborate with traffickers. You understand?
Yeah,
Every system, you always have that kind of whatever, but there must be a kind of system to take care of that.
What will you advise to be the holistic approach towards helping these institutions to perform optimally and to get rid of this monster?
Number one, the institution must go on advocacy, very strong advocacy, not just arrest. Advocacy, sensitization. They need to sensitize the nation on the ills of drug abuse and substance misuse. They also need to mobilize people. They should carry the fight to various institutions. Like I said, tertiary institutions, to the family level, to the community-based organizations, to NGOs. They have to partner with a lot of them so that the whole nation will know about it. Because as it is now, some parents just wake up and realize that, look, their sons have been taking, their wards have been taking drugs over a period of time. So it needs a holistic approach to the entire whatever. Like I mentioned, Ministry of Information, Ministry of Health, the NGOs, international development partners, like even United Nations can come into this fight. That's where we can actually arrest this. And much more importantly, like I mentioned earlier on, we must streamline the drug distribution system in this country.
Would you consider Nigeria as paramountly a trafficking nation or a consuming nation?
Nigeria is, one, a consuming nation as well as a hub. It's a consuming nation as well as a hub.
Why do Nigeria become a hub?
It's a hub because a lot of arrests that have been made, most of these drugs are not meant for Nigeria. They don't emanate from Nigeria.
So if you have any advice, we are rounding up, if you have any advice to the government on how to ensure that we effectively check this issue of great concern, what will that advice be?
My number one advice is that the government needs to sit up. They need to sit up. They need to empower those who are responsible for fighting this menace. Number one, NDLEA. Number two, the professionals that are supposed to be concerned with drugs, the pharmacists. You must bring them in. You cannot fight this war without bringing the pharmacists in, because these are the experts that are supposed to deal in these drugs. Number three, drug distribution system must be streamlined. We must ensure that the drugs must be handled by those who are trained to handle them. And number four, all the other stakeholders must be, you bring them on board.
But pharmacists don't handle cannabis. They don't handle they don't handle cocaine and heroin and all of those substances, do they?
They are licensed to handle them.
They are licensed
to handle them. They are poisons.
Okay.
Do you know cocaine is an anesthetic for the eye?
Okay.
Do you know codeine? Codeine that they use in cough syrup is antitussive to suppress the cough center.
Okay.
So a lot of all these drugs,
are learning.
a lot of all these drugs are drugs that are supposed to be used medically, but people abuse them because of either the side effects or the extended usage. All the drugs you've mentioned, all of them, they have their medicinal uses, medical uses, I mean. And the pharmacist is licensed to handle them.
Your last word to the nation.
The nation is that my last word is about the youth, the future of the youth. The youth should stay off drugs because it destroys their future. And once the future is destroyed, they can never be useful to the nation again. And every nation needs its own youth for continuity and succession.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful talking with pharmacist Ali Zachary Gia. You are welcome, and we thank you for being our guest, and we hope that when we have the time to beckon on you again, you will make yourself available to us. You have heard it this morning. Let the government be ups and doing. Let all hands be on deck. Civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, the National Orientation Agency, let us go full slog against this monster that is destroying the fabrics of our country. Drug abuse and trafficking is not to be tolerated by any country that wants her onion, because it destroys our youth, and you know our youth are essentially the security of our future. And apart from the youth, it also destroys our human capital that are developed, that are supposed to handle nation building and sustainable development. So we must not treat this matter with triviality. We must put in all the energies that are requisite in order to defeat it. Even the issues and questions of our security challenges cannot be divorced from the use and abuses of all of these narcotic drugs. I remain your host, Ebenezer Oyetakin, but don't change the channel, because we will be transiting into the next discourse segment from here. Thank you.